cosmic collision. Maya Vashti adjusted her modest black dress, feeling distinctly out of place among the glittering elites at the International Astronomical Society's annual gala. The rooftop observatory of the Maxwell Science Center offered breathtaking views of both the night sky and the city below. But Maya couldn't appreciate either. Her attention was fixed on the potential research sponsors who had, one by one, rejected her funding proposals. Too speculative, the representative from Hartwell Technologies had said dismissively. Insufficient preliminary data, commented the woman from Global Science Initiatives. Fascinating theory, Dr. Vashti, but not commercially viable, explained the man from Pioneer Research Foundation. Maya sipped her champagne, watching the wealthy donors and established scientist network while she stood alone. At 32, she had already published groundbreaking papers on unusual stellar radiation patterns. But without proper funding, her research remained theoretical. Time was running out on her university position, and with it her access to even basic equipment. You're looking at them like they're particularly disappointing. Celestial objects, a deep voice observed from beside. Maya turned to find a tall man with unusual amber eyes, watching her with quiet amusement. Unlike the other attendees in formal black tie, he wore a midnight blue suit that seemed to capture light differently, almost shimmering under the observatory's specialized lighting. More like black holes, she replied. They suck in resources and give nothing back unless you perfectly align with their narrow interests. He laughed, the sound surprisingly warm. Elias Rain, he introduced himself, extending his hand. Maya Vashti. When their fingers touched, she felt an unexpected jolt, like static electricity but somehow deeper. Elias seemed to feel it too, his eyes widening slightly. The author of Radiation Anomalies in Proxima Centauri? He asked, surprising her with knowledge of her work. You've read my paper? Few outside her specialized field had even heard of it. I've read all your work, he said simply. Your theories on interstellar communication possibilities are compelling. Something in his intense gaze made Maya glance away, uncomfortable with both his focused attention and the way it affected her usually calm demeanor. Compelling but apparently not fundable, she said, gesturing toward the crowd. I've been rejected by everyone who matters tonight. Not everyone, Elias corrected softly. Would you show me your latest research? Away from this. He glanced around with subtle distaste. Performative gathering. 30 minutes later, they stood in the center's small research library, empty during the gala. Maya's tablet projected her data into the air between them, unusual radiation patterns from several distant star systems, forming what she believed were non-random sequences. Conventional science says these are just natural stellar phenomena, she explained, animated by genuine passion for her work. But I've identified patterns that suggest intention, possible communication attempts using star radiation as the medium. Elias studied the projections with surprising intensity, occasionally reaching out to rotate the data models, his fingers moving through the holographic displays with unusual precision. What if they're not communication attempts? He suggested quietly. But navigation markers? Maya stared at him, a chill running down her spine. I never considered that perspective. Perhaps whoever created these patterns isn't trying to talk, Elias continued, his voice taking on a rhythmic quality that captivated Maya. Perhaps they're trying to travel. Their discussion flowed with remarkable synchronicity, each thought completed by the other, each question meeting an insightful response. Hours passed unnoticed as they moved from stellar radiation to theoretical physics to the philosophy of scientific discovery. I've never met anyone who understands, Maya admitted as midnight approached. Even my colleagues think I'm chasing fantasies. They lack imagination, Elias replied, standing closer than professional conversation required. And courage. The proximity affected Maya's breathing, her scientific focus giving way to awareness of him as a man. The unusual warmth radiating from his skin, the subtle scent that reminded her of ozone after lightning, the intensity in his amber eyes. The observation deck should be empty now, Elias suggested softly. Would you like to see something remarkable? On the now deserted observation deck, Elias adjusted the research telescope with expert hands. Tonight offers perfect viewing conditions for the phenomenon I want to show you. When Maya looked through the eyepiece, she gasped. A distant star was exhibiting precisely the radiation pattern her research had predicted, but had never before been observed. How did you know? She whispered, looking up at him with wonder. "Some things in this universe are meant to align," he answered, his gaze holding hers with unmistakable meaning. The kiss that followed felt inevitable, like gravitational attraction between celestial bodies. His lips were warmer than expected, and when his hands framed her face, Maya felt that same electric current run through her entire body. What began as intellectual connection transformed into physical expression, their bodies meeting. With the same synchronicity as their minds had hours earlier, they moved to a secluded corner of the observation deck. The vast dome of stars, their only witness as professional boundaries dissolved completely. "Your skin?" Maya whispered at one point, noticing how it seemed to shimmer slightly in the starlight. "It's beautiful." Elias captured her lips again instead of answering, his touch igniting sensations Maya had never experienced before. Their encounter was both tender and urgent, as if they were discovering something profound in each other's arms. Afterward, as they lay wrapped in his suit jacket looking up at the stars, Maya felt a strange certainty that this night existed outside normal time, a perfect moment that couldn't integrate into her complicated life. "I should go," she said eventually, reality intruding as she thought of her younger sister Lena, who would be waiting for her return. Lena's special needs had shaped Maya's life choices since their parents' death, limiting her personal life but never diminishing her love for her only family. "Stay," Elias said softly, his fingers tracing patterns on her arm that reminded her of stellar constellations. "There's so much more to discover." For one breathless moment Maya considered it. Then she shook her head, gathering her dress and dignity. "Tonight was unexpected, wonderful. But my life is complicated and I don't do relationships." Disappointment flickered across Elias's features, quickly replaced by understanding. "At least let me contact you about your research." "I might have resources." "No," Maya interrupted gently. "Let's leave this as a beautiful anomaly. Like my stellar radiation patterns, remarkable, meaningful, but not part of ordinary life." As dawn broke over the city, Maya slipped away while Elias made a call, taking with her only memories of a connection that had felt strangely like coming home. Her research might never be funded. Her theories might remain unproven, but for one night she'd been truly seen and understood. What Maya couldn't know as she hailed a taxi was that the universe rarely allows such powerful convergences to remain isolated events. Like her beloved stars, once certain bodies come into proximity, their orbits are forever altered, destined to cross paths again when cosmic forces align. Gravity's pull. 6 months had passed since the gala night. Maya sat in the austere waiting room of the Nebula Foundation, nervously adjusting her portfolio. After countless rejection letters, this interview represented her last hope for continuing her research. The Nebula Foundation was notoriously secretive about its projects and selective about its scientists, making Maya's invitation all the more surprising. All she knew was that they funded cutting-edge astronomical research considered too speculative by conventional institutions. "Dr. Vashti," the assistant called. "The director will see you now." Maya followed her through corridors lined with stunning astronomical photography until they reached a sleek office dominated by a wall of windows facing the observatory dome. "Dr. Vashti, welcome," a familiar voice greeted as the door closed behind her. Maya froze, her prepared introduction dying on her lips. Elias Rain stood before her, looking even more striking in daylight than in her persistent memories of that night. "You," she managed, professional composure momentarily shattered. "Me," he confirmed with the ghost of a smile. "Please sit." "You're the director of the Nebula Foundation?" Maya asked, struggling to reconcile the mysterious stranger from the observation deck with this powerful figure. "Founder and director," Elias clarified, his amber eyes studying her with the same intensity she remembered. "I've been following your work with great interest. Since before or after our encounter?" Maya asked directly. "Both," he admitted. "Your research initially caught my attention. Our meeting confirmed my interest in your mind." The double meaning hung between them as Maya opened her portfolio with slightly trembling hands. "My proposal outlines a 3-year research plan to document and analyze the unusual stellar radiation patterns I've identified in 7 distinct star systems," she began, forcing herself back to professional territory. For 40 minutes, Maya presented her research while Elias listened with remarkable focus, asking insightful questions that pushed her theories further. The intellectual connection that had sparked between them reignited instantly. complicated now by memories of physical intimacy, neither acknowledged directly. Your proposal is exactly the kind of innovative thinking the Nebula Foundation supports, Elias said when she finished. But I'd like to offer something beyond conventional funding. He pressed a button, transforming one wall into a display screen showing a spectacular private observatory built into a mountainside. This is Horizon Point, the Foundation's advanced research facility. I'm offering you the position of lead researcher with complete access to equipment, decades ahead of what's available at universities. Maya stared at the images, recognizing technology she had only dreamed of using.
Why me?
She asked, suspicion mingling with desire for the opportunity. Elias considered her for a moment. Because your theories align with research directions I find personally significant. And our history has nothing to do with this offer? It doesn't disqualify you, he replied carefully. Our connection that night was unexpected, but doesn't diminish your scientific qualifications. Maya weighed her options. Turning down this opportunity meant abandoning her research entirely. Accepting meant working closely with a man who had awakened something in her. She'd spent 6 months trying to forget. I need to consider my sister's needs, she said finally. Lena requires specialized care. Horizon Point includes residential facilities for researchers and their families, Elias responded, as if anticipating this concern. Your sister would have access to excellent medical resources nearby. As Maya left with the formal offer in hand, her mind raced with conflicting thoughts. Professionally, this was everything she had worked toward. Personally, it meant orbiting daily around a man who affected her in ways that both thrilled and terrified her. When she called the number Elias had provided that evening, her decision was made. I accept the position, she told him simply. His brief silence conveyed more than words could have. We begin next week, he finally replied, his voice carrying a warmth that sent shivers down her spine. Strange orbits, the Horizon Point Observatory exceeded Maya's wildest expectations. Perched on a remote mountainside far from light pollution, its advanced equipment and comprehensive astronomical database represented scientific paradise. 2 months into her position, Maya had already gathered more compelling data on her stellar radiation patterns than in years at the university. Her theory was evolving from speculation to substantiated research, thanks to the observatory's unprecedented capabilities. More unsettling was her evolving relationship with Elias. During days, they maintained professional boundaries. Their interactions focused on research and scientific discussion, but night observations created an intimacy that tested her resolve as they worked side by side under the dome, tracking the mysterious signals from distant stars. The pattern repeats every 42 minutes, Maya noted, studying the readouts from their most recent observation session. Too precise to be natural stellar behavior. Elias leaned closer, his presence sending that now familiar current through her body. The variation in wavelength suggests a complex encoding system. In these moments, Maya found herself noticing peculiarities about Elias she hadn't observed during their first encounter. His unusual diet consisted primarily of liquids with mineral compositions she couldn't identify. Certain frequencies of light seemed to cause him discomfort, though he tried to hide his reactions. Most notably, under the observatory's specialized spectrum lighting, his skin occasionally took on a subtle lavender hue that no human pigmentation could explain. You're watching me again, Elias observed one night, catching her studying him instead of the star charts. You're an interesting subject, Maya replied cautiously. Something like amusement flickered across his features. More interesting than your radiation patterns? Differently interesting, she hedged. You don't eat normal food. You avoid certain light wavelengths. And sometimes your skin... She trailed off. Perhaps I have unusual allergies, he suggested lightly, though tension had entered his posture. Perhaps, Maya agreed, not pushing further despite her growing suspicions. Their professional partnership flourished despite, or perhaps because of, the unacknowledged attraction between them. Lena had settled comfortably into their residential quarters, her health improving with access to the promised medical resources. One night, working late after the other researchers had retired, Maya entered Elias's private laboratory to deliver updated calculations. She found him absorbed in a data transmission unlike anything in their official research. Coordinates and frequencies directed toward a star system her project wasn't investigating. What is this? She asked from the doorway. Elias didn't startle. as if he'd been aware of her presence all along. Personal research, directed at Omicron Persei. Maya moved closer, her scientific curiosity overriding propriety. That's not part of our study region. It's part of mine, he replied, making no attempt to hide the screens. Their eyes met in the dimly lit laboratory, mutual awareness crackling between them like cosmic radiation. For a heartbeat, Maya thought he might finally close the careful distance they'd maintained since she'd joined Horizon Point. Instead, Elias stepped back. It's late. We should continue tomorrow. As Maya returned to her quarters, her mind worked through the accumulating anomalies surrounding Elias Rainey. His advanced knowledge, his physiological peculiarities, his interest in her specific research, and now his secret communications with a distant star system. The scientist in her formulated a hypothesis that seemed impossible, yet increasingly probable. The woman in her wondered if their undeniable connection had been genuine or calculated. And beneath both questions lay a more troubling thought. If her suspicions were correct, what would it mean not just for her research but for humanity's understanding of its place in the universe? With characteristic determination, Maya made a decision. She would investigate Elias Rain with the same methodical approach she applied to her stellar phenomena. Because if her emerging theory about him proved correct, it would be the most significant discovery in human history, and potentially the most dangerous.